So we're going to start on our back using a chair, can be a couch, can be anything that helps you elevate your legs. We're going to do some turtle breath, but generally with turtle breath, we're doing it with the legs elevated without the chair. But if we got some diaphragm pain, it can be difficult to lift the legs up. So we're going to use the chair to help prop our legs. So laying on our back, feet on the chair. Knees are going to open up to be shoulder width apart. Feet are going to remain touching together. So kind of in our inverted frog position. So knees are wide, shoulder width. Heels and ball of feet are still touching together. And we're going to start with just simple crocodile breaths. So we're going to make our big C shapes with our hands. Thumbs are going in, hands are going below the rib cage, above the hip bone in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. And we're going to start with getting into that nice balloon action of the abdominals. I want to feel on our inhale that expansion pushing into our thumbs at the low back, pushing into our index fingers through the abdominal, through the belly, coming up through the front, and also pushing out through the side walls into the palms of the hand. And this is going to be a very slow and shallow breath to start. On the inhale, we're getting nice, we're filling up that balloon. On the exhale, we're drawing the navel up and into the spine. I want to stay shallow of any of pain. We can move slowly into slight discomfort, into like that 0.1, 0.5 up to 1, and maybe slowly into that level 2, but not going above into that level 3 of discomfort on a scale of 0 to 10. And with each inhale, we're seeing if we can expand that wall a little bit wider without triggering above that discomfort. And a big thing here is we can kind of sense, is there a level in which, if there's discomfort, can we feel some stretch, some lengthening that's kind of moving into that discomfort that feels stretchy before it becomes painful. And that's the level in which we want to explore our breath. Soft, gentle, right up to the edge before it becomes pain without triggering into that pain. And with, 5 to 10 breaths, hopefully you're able to find that that pain level starts to move further and further out, and you're able to get a little bit bigger breath in. Once we get 5 to 10 breaths, we're going to bring hands onto knees. We're pushing the knees away so that we get those elbows nice and extended. At the same time, we're pulling our knees in order to create that pressure through our abdominal core. This does not need to be a heavy brace, especially if it's uncomfortable. So just nice push, lightly pull the knees in. And we're going to do that same crocodile breath, slowly breathing in, filling up that abdominal wall. On the exhale, drawing that navel down and into the spine. Again, I want to stay shallow and light and then slowly start to expand out, making sure that we're not pushing into level 3 or above discomfort or pain. And the last thing we're going to do here is start to feel that breath moving down into the pelvic floor, the pelvic bowl. And we can help with that by, on our exhale, as you draw that navel in, also do a light Kegel, like you're squeezing off, holding a fart, holding your pee on that exhale. And then on the inhale, allow that breath to move down and expand that Kegel out and away. With each exhale, lightly squeeze. And then on that inhale, let the inhale breath open that back up. Feel it lengthen and stretch. Once we get a good 5 to 6 breaths, We're going to very slowly let our feet off the chair. We're going to roll over and we can move the chair out of the way. We're going to come back to the chair at the end of the class to go through that turtle breath again. So now we're going to get into our shin box position. I'm in my left side shin box. Left hand is down, grounded to the floor. Elbow is spiraled out and away. Nice packed shoulder, tall spine. Weight is slightly shifted over. Now, we're still going to be working into that crocodile breath, a little bit of turtle breath. Inhale, filling up that belly. Exhale, drawing navel up and into the spine. And I want to move at this point at the speed of a very, very slow breath. This breath can be anywhere from like a 5-second count to a 10-second count on both directions. Inhale, slow, to exhale, slow. And any movement we start applying to it needs to be at that same slow speed. So nice inhale in through the nose. And we're going to start with some hip openers. So on our exhale, as we're drawing navel up and in, slow lift of that knee. I want to go slow to make sure that doesn't trigger into this pain. The last thing I want to do when I have this kind of spasm, diaphragmatic spasm, is to move fast and to trigger it to make it lock down even more. That's not going to be very helpful. So we have to move extra slow. Exhale as we lift. Squeeze, squeezing into it. Inhale as we let that leg back down. And we're just going to do 5 reps. It really can be anywhere between 3 and 5 reps. This does not need to be high rep work. Once we get 3 to 5 reps on that side, real important, I want to make sure we are assessing how does that movement of that hip relate to the discomfort that we are feeling in our diaphragm. We're very slowly going to move to the other side. Again, I do not want to trigger pain during this session. Locking in, grounding that palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine. Slow fill into that crocodile breath. Make sure that the position itself is not painful before we start to lift that opposite leg. You may find that one side of your shin box triggers that discomfort more than the other side. That would be another correlation to that diaphragm and how it relates to positions. And it's actually really important because it can tell us how that diaphragm, which hip it might be stabilizing for. So if you're finding one side is more sensitive than the other side, that's actually really, really important information. So inhale, filling up that crocodile breath. Exhale, drawing the navel into spine, and slow lift of that knee. Notice if this hip is tighter, if it's more sensitive in that diaphragm. I want to continue to go slow with the breath. And with each one, we're seeing if we can slowly get a little bit more range without forcing it and without triggering into that level 3 or above. We've got to stay at below level 3. Once we get 3 to 5 reps, again, we're very slowly going to move to the other side, getting into that same position. Now we're going to bring that breath down into that back bowl. So this is where I want that back hip to be a little bit off the floor. We're a little shifted onto the one hip so that back hip is not on the floor. As we inhale, let the weight of that breath move down into that back pelvic bowl. Imagine it's kind of like filling up a bowling ball, so it has weight and it's just reaching that hip down to the floor. On the exhale, we're letting that hip lift and move forward, and we're trying to scoop into it lightly. This is where I want to imagine the sacrum is like the palm of my hand so that my fingers are my tailbone. As I exhale, I want to scoop and try to shift those fingers forward. The more I'm able to do that, I can start to feel some length and stretch through the front of the hip. And then on our inhale, letting that inhale breath fill up that back bowl, reaching to the floor. Exhale, the hip lifts up, moves forward, and then actively scoops. Again, 3 to 5 reps. And again, notice the relationship that might be going on between that breath and the hip that we're on. Does that hip feel tight? Does that breath feel a little tense and sensitive? And is it different as we switch to the other side? Grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine. Nice inhale into that bowling ball of that back hip. Exhale, hip lifts, reaches forward, and actively scoops into it. How does this side feel different than the other side? Do you feel like you have more mobility, less mobility? Is your breath more open or is it less open? Those are, again, really crucial bits of information, especially for coming in for your session with me, because it really gives me a better map of exactly the relationships that are going on. Once we get 3 to 5 reps, nice slow transition back to the other side. And now we're going to start getting into a little bit of rotation with that back hip. So it's doing the same inhale into that back hip, exhale as we scoop, and then we're adding in some reach and rotation. So by locking in that hip, exhale, we're drawing that navel in. We are already getting some contraction into this area, this region of that diaphragm, and then adding in a rotation. If that diaphragm is locked down and tight, it's going to restrict rotation. So this can be a little sensitive. So we got to go slow into it to make sure that we're not pushing into pain. So inhale into that back pelvic bowl, exhale, scoop, and then very slow spiral, continuing with that exhale. That navel's drawing in. I want to make sure that we are not pushing into pain. So I want to start shallow on my first rep. Inhale, bringing it back. Exhale. See if we can start to move a little further without pushing into pain actively. So that, with each one, we're trying to get a little bit further so that by the time we get to our 5th breath, we're kind of finding where that end range of tension without it becoming pain. And then we're going to slowly transition across to the other side. Again, these movements are crucial for comparing. What does the one side feel compared to the other side? Lock that palm in, pack shoulder, tall spine, elbows spiraled out. Inhale into that back bowl, allowing it to drop. Exhale, it lifts, scoops, and then slow rotation. Again, keeping it small to start with. And then with each one, we can slowly start to get a little further into that reach. Make sure that back hip is scooping and is locked into that active scoop so we feel that stretch. And then that stretch gets drawn up into our rotation. As we get to the 5th one, we should have a pretty good idea of, are you able to go further in this direction or further in the other direction? Does one side feel more sensitive? Is one side more painful than the other side? Again, very, very crucial information for assessing that diaphragm. We're going to come back to our first side. We're now going to bring that hand off the floor if we can. Now, this may be an area, if that back is super sensitive, we may not be able to bring this hand up. If you cannot get that hand off the floor into this position, then you need to skip this particular movement for now consultation with me, we can work on getting this position back. This is actually a very powerful position because we're going to be working on getting into that side body to get that diaphragm to open up a little bit more with our breath, get some release on what it is holding on to. So bringing elbow up, forearm is going to be flush parallel with the ceiling. We're still inhaling into that back pelvic bowl. We're exhaling and scooping. And I want to start with just focusing on that scoop to make, because just getting here, this area is going to be opening up a little bit without adding any other movement. So I want to make sure that it's not painful. Maybe it's sensitive. If it is, I want to see how well I can move into it without triggering into pain. If I am free moving into it, then as we lock in that back scoop, we can start to reach down through the opposite hip and lift up at the same time through that elbow. So it's like I'm trying to reach that elbow lightly up to the ceiling as I'm downwardly pressing into the floor. Inhale, we're softening, filling up that back bowl. Exhale, scoop, lock in. Exhale, continue to reach and lengthen. And again, with each one, we're seeing if we can get a little bit more length. Can I get a little higher with that elbow? Can I downwardly press a little bit more? Can I feel that as a stretch, not as pain? And notice, do you get tightness, tension on that other side? I kind of want to have some awareness of what we're feeling in the hips, in that abdominal area around the ribs, as well as the shoulders. Once we get 3 to 5 reps, we're very slowly going to move to the other side. So as we get to that other side, again, can we get that hand off the floor? If not, then again, I want to skip this position. If we're able to, we're going to start with just the breath before we add any reach. Inhale into that back hip bowl. Exhale, let it lift and actively scoop. We can get a couple breaths just to see, is there excess tension on this side that was different than the other side? If it's not painful, then on the next one, as we exhale, locking in that back hip, we can start to downwardly press through the hip as we lift through that elbow. Going nice and slow. And with each one, can we get a little bit more length and reach? Now, once we get 3 to 5 reps, we're going to come back to that same position on the other side, bringing that arm up. And now I want to kind of just see, can we get more breath on our inhale to work with that exhale? So I'm going to bring my opposite hand. I'm just kind of lightly touching that side of my rib and low back. And it's just a light touch. And really, I almost have my hand like a paper's width off my body so that I'm not quite touching. But on my inhale breath is going to move into my hand. So I can have my hand here as a place to feel that breath reach out to. Can I feel that expansion through the abdominal wall? And can it reach into my hand so I feel it touch on the inhale? Exhale, drawing navel into spine as I scoop. Going back into that inhale, I'm letting that breath move into the back hip pocket and seeing if it will expand out into lightly touching into my hand. I'm kind of very specifically working around that area of the rib cage where it's tense and tight. Can we feel that start to lengthen and stretch? If we can feel length and stretch on the inhale, then on the exhale, we can come back to reaching down through the hip and lifting up through the elbow. And then inhale, feel that abdominal wall expanding out. Exhale, we're expanding long. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So as that hand comes up, opposite hand just comes out for a light touch. Inhale, feel that breath expanding out like we're blowing up a balloon. Exhale, all we're doing is just drawing the navel up and into the spine with a little scoop of the pelvis. Inhale, filling up that back pelvic bowl as we expand out and away. Again, how are we feeling that sensitivity? Are we feeling some stretch related to that inhale breath? And is it painful? Is it uncomfortable? If it's uncomfortable, then I'm probably going to limit how much reach I'm going to do. I'm just going to focus on this at the level of the breath. If it's not painful, then we can, and you're feeling that stretch, then inhale, let it expand out. Exhale, find that length, reaching down, reaching up at the same time. Inhale, find that width of the breath. Exhale, reaching to long. After our 3 to 5 breaths, we're going to slowly come back over. We're going to do our last shin box, which is getting into our forward folds. With folds, we're going to kind of focus on the shin angle being square with the shoulders. Hands are square with the shoulders and the shin as well. Nice inhale into that crocodile breath, filling up that back pelvic bowl. Exhale, drawing navel into the spine, light scoop, and then very slow as we reach both hands forward. Inhale as we bring it back. Now, if we have an overactive diaphragm, generally this position's not going to be one of the worst positions. Getting into a little bit of fold, especially if we're keeping that spine long, should be manageable. But again, if this is painful, then we want to stay under that level 3. And with each one, we're seeing if we can go a little bit further without activating into pain. And once we get 3 to 5 reps, we're going to switch to the other side and do the same thing. Now, hopefully at this point, with the amount of breath work we've done, we're already starting to feel that tension lighten up a little bit. But at the same time, I still want to continue to move slow with the pace of our breath. Nice inhale into that back bowl. Exhale as we scoop, get into that active scoop, and then both hands continue to slide forward shallow for the first one. And with each one, we're seeing if we can get a little further without triggering into pain. Once we get 3 to 5 breaths, we're going to do a little bit going side to side on our shin box folds. So nice slow transition as we move to one side. Take a full inhale or exhale to inhale breath so that you're ready for a nice exhale as we get to the end side. Inhale as we slowly come up. We have an exhale to inhale as we transition so that we're ready for a nice exhale on the other side. Again, we are moving slow. We're dealing with pain in that diaphragm, mid-back area. I do not want to be triggering pain, so we have to move extra slow. This is one of those areas where I like to say, however slow you are going, you can go even slower. So if it's painful, we can slow it down, back off a little bit. Don't force the range of motion. Move slowly into it so that you can keep that pain level below a level 3. ideally in that level 1, probably even to like not even getting a whole lot into level 2. The less we can trigger pain, the better. Now we're going to shift into our child's pose position. So we're going to come up into quadruped, spreading hands nice and wide. I want to get some breath work in this position before we extend out into our child's pose. So same idea. Inhale into that crocodile breath. Fill that abdominal wall up like a balloon. On the exhale, drawing navel up and into the spine. As we do so, that's going to cause us to scoop just a little bit. We're going to move into that scoop and we're going to do some very light pelvic tilts. So on the inhale, fill up that abdominal wall, allow the pelvis to tilt lightly to the floor. So we feel that belly kind of opening up, maybe a little bit of sway in the back, but I want to make sure we're not moving into pain. This is a good assessment point to notice, is it more sensitive as we scoop on the exhale, or is it more sensitive as we inhale on that belly expanding? The scoop is going to be lumbar flexion. Are we feeling it as we contract through the abdominals, tightening through the front around that diaphragm? Or do we feel it more on the extension as we're getting more opening and length through the front of that diaphragm? If you're feeling pain associated with this part of the breath, child's pose may not be a safe position to get into. So want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves into painful positions right now. If this is not painful, then we can slowly walk our hands forward. I want to spread the hands nice and wide. I want to have downward pressure through the hands. We're going to do that same breath work from this position. Nice inhale into that belly, letting the pelvis lightly tilt to the floor. Exhale, drawing the navel into the spine as we lightly scoop. If this is not painful, then on that next inhale, fill that belly up. As we exhale, drawing navel into spine, we're very slowly going to let the chest reach to the floor. Keep the elbows actively straight, hands pushing lightly into the floor. As we exhale down, inhale, we're coming back up. And again, I don't want to push into a painful position, but I do want to assess, how does this feel in that 12th rib area? Do you feel it more on the right side? Do you feel it more on the left side? How about the shoulders? If you're feeling that tension in that diaphragm, are you also feeling some tightness and tension or discomfort in one or both shoulders? More than likely, it's going to be one of the shoulders. That can give us an indication of that shoulder might be a little unstable, and it's your diaphragm that is compensating to help provide some extra stability for the shoulder. On our next exhale, as we drop into light tension, I do not want to be in heavy tension here. I don't want to be in a position of discomfort beyond a level 1. This should feel kind of good and somewhat comfortable. We're going to stay in this position, and we're bringing back that breath, coming in, crocodile breath on the inhale, exhale, navel into spine. As we inhale, we can allow ourselves to soften the tension lightly. As we exhale, see if you can get a little deeper into the tension without it becoming painful. And we're just doing 3 to 5 breaths. After 3 to 5, we're inhale coming up, exhale, going down lightly for 2 or 3 more reps. Then we're going to come off of our child's pose. We're going to come back. We're going to grab our chair again. Coming back to the floor, onto our backs. Feet going up onto the chair. Again, knees are going to be shoulder width. Feet are touching heels and the ball of the toe, the knuckle of the big toe. Hands are making nice big C shapes. Thumbs in the back, index fingers in the front. Hands below the ribs and above the hip bone. Coming back in to explore that crocodile breath. Nice slow inhale. Feel that abdominal wall push into your thumbs, into your index fingers, and into the palms, like you're blowing up a balloon. Exhale, navel draws up and into the spine. Slow exhale. And right off the bat, we ought to be able to notice, has that tension in that rib area, has it improved? Can we get a deeper breath? Can we get more expansion of that wall? As we get 5, 6 breaths in, we can now bring our hands up to knees, pressing and extending elbows fully, and then lightly pulling into the hands to create tension. Doing that same crocodile breath, filling up that abdominal wall. Want to feel that low back expanding into the floor on that inhale. Exhale, navel draws into the spine. On that next inhale, feel that breath moving into the pelvic bowl. Exhale, navel to spine, light Kegel, squeeze, and then let that next inhale breath go in and open up that Kegel, expanding into the pelvic floor. Can you feel some stretch related to the pelvic floor? And once we get a good 5, 6 breaths, relax the hands, bring them down to your side, relax your legs. If you want to bring your feet down to the floor, you can. If you want to keep them up on the chair, that's fine as well. Get into a position in which you can just work on nice slow inhale. We're still breathing into that crocodile breath lightly, but we're now going to also start to let it move into the chest, ribs, upper back, shoulders, neck. Nice inhale, kind of expanding into that larger balloon of the upper body. Exhale, navel draws into the spine. Last little assessment is just noticing, how does that area feel on the rib or diaphragm area? Are you noticing any other areas of tension? Are you able to breathe into that tension on the inhale? On the exhale, see if you can let that tension release, drop to the floor, just like it's melting away or being rinsed off the body. And when you're ready, very slowly get up. Make sure you're not dizzy or lightheaded before coming up to a standing position. With getting up, if you're having this kind of issue with the diaphragm, I suggest rolling into your side body. So if you found that any of these positions have benefited, made this better, then I would encourage you, do these movements throughout the day. You don't even have to do them all together all at once. Take 30 seconds to a minute, play with each of them, sprinkle it throughout the day, especially the ones where you felt the most amount of tension at the beginning and the least amount of tension at the end. Those are breaths that probably can be, the more you do them throughout the day is really going to help. Get some length back into that diaphragm with some activation. And the bigger thing is, it's going to help to start to change that neurology so that we don't rely on that diaphragm to compensate. And then we can get into stabilizing those other joints so that we get out of that bad compensation pattern.